Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus took Peter, James, and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, conversing with him. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud cast a shadow over them. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell prostrate and were very much afraid. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise and do not be afraid. And when the disciples raised their eyes, they saw no one else but Jesus alone. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, Do not tell the vision to anyone until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So this is the first time I'm preaching since the Honduras mission, even though that was about a month ago. So I'd like to share a little of my experience on that. It was really an amazing experience. We can see our illustrious leader here on one of our outings. Every morning, we would go out to some remote area, and we would set up these makeshift work areas for the doctors and the dentist, and we would treat up to a couple of thousand people a day. The government down there has become very supportive of the St. Paul's Clinic, and so when we're going out on these, what they call brigades, when you go out to a remote area, there'll be government doctors and dentists who go along with us, so we can end up treating a lot of people. Fortunately for me, Mary Dawn Ryder gave me something to do to assist her as she worked on people's teeth. And so here you can see Mary Dawn working hard on somebody's teeth and me holding a toothbrush. Well, but I think, the greatest blessing for me on this trip was to see just the passion that the volunteers brought with them when they came down. I was with Mary Dawn most of the time, so I saw it through her. And just to see her love and the way she poured herself out in caring for people was tremendously inspirational for me. And it wasn't just Mary Dawn, the whole group. That's just who they are and the way they are. Last week, and it just kind of hit me, this is what it is to be human. This is the way we are meant to live as humans, to really pour ourselves out and love for each other. When we would go to dinners in the evening, we'd be tired, but I could see this just joy radiating from them just because of what they had been doing. Last week in the Becoming Catholic class, Marguerite shared with us this great comment. She said, the opposite of love is fear. Interesting, because fear binds us, fear constricts us. Love impels us forward, impels us out. That's what I saw down in Honduras. The St. Paul's folks who have been going there for many years said that, in the early days, the country was less stable and it was more risky. There was more anxiety going out on these brigades. And yet they kept coming year after year just because of how much they loved the people down there. I'm sure you've had experiences like this where, either yourself or somebody in your family, you just see that they face some this difficulty, but they're able to face it because of their love for somebody. Today is week 2 of our Lenten message series titled The Way. Between now and Easter, God is asking us to follow Jesus to the cross and then to resurrection. Each week, the Bible readings challenge us to confront another obstacle, keeping us from following Jesus' way. Last week, we were told to confront our temptations, just as Jesus had done in the desert. This week, we're told to confront our fears. So let's turn to our readings and see what they teach us. In our first reading, God calls Abram to leave his homeland. So the Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from the land of your kinsfolk and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and the communities of the earth shall find blessing in you." Now this had to be scary for Abram. The man was 75 years old when he got this call from God. Okay? And it's not like he was moving to a neighboring state like we might do. He's going to a completely foreign land. In fact, he didn't even know where he was going. God said, "To a land that I will show you." And he's bringing his wife, he's bringing his nephews, he's bringing a bunch of workers who work with him. So he's got to provide for all them. This had to be incredibly frightening and scary for him to be doing this. And yet, he did it. You know, it's no wonder that we call Abraham our father in faith. That's faith. He really believed, he trusted, and because of that trust, the world has been blessed. God made 3 promises to Abraham. The first is the promise of land. The second, "I will make of you a great nation." And the third, "Through you, all the communities of the earth shall be blessed." Each of these blessings is fulfilled when God makes a new covenant with his people. In the Mosaic covenant, they enter the promised land. In the Davidic covenant, they're made a great nation, a great kingdom. And then in the new covenant with Jesus, all the world finds blessing. So tremendous blessing, but Abraham didn't see any of that. He just trusted that God had a plan and God was going to use him in some way. And we've been blessed as a result of his trust and his faith. And the same thing can happen with us. God can be calling us, depending on our state in life and what we're doing, God can be calling us to do something, and it can be scary. You know, I felt God calling me to be a deacon, even though I had a terrible fear of public speaking. My son, youngest son, who's living with us now, has felt called to go to the abortion clinic in Greenbelt and to pray. And after going there for a little while, he felt called to actually try to approach some of the women and just try to share with them about God's love and his mercy. And it was scary. In fact, he would say terrifying. But he did it. And just Friday, he went and he approached a young lady and she asked, "Do you have any help? Do you have anything on pregnancy centers?" He did. He gave it to her. She took it and she left. No abortion. I mentioned about Honduras and their call. Their call came right after the hurricane down in Honduras, which was just devastating, killed thousands of people. And there was a woman who was going to St. Paul's, who was from Honduras. She came into the rectory on her knees, begging for help. That was their call. Other people felt called to bring the gospel to areas that are dangerous, and yet they'll go. Some people have felt called to open their homes to orphans from other countries even. The list could go on and on and on, but you get the idea. All of us are called to some mission to serve in some way. And it can be scary. But if we're willing to confront that fear, to accept it and just trust that God has a plan, then not only are we going to be fulfilled, but others will be blessed through what we're doing. And we don't know. Sometimes we don't know the full plan. But we just trust in God. Okay, now let's turn to our gospel and the story of the Transfiguration. While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud cast a shadow over them. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell prostrate and were very much afraid. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Rise and do not be afraid." The way I read this, I think this is a great example of what we call the fear of the Lord. Okay, it's not a servile fear, a fear of punishment, or even a fear that God's going to hurt us, But it's just an encounter with God that is so big and so overwhelming that the natural response is just fear. It's kind of like a couple of weeks ago, Father Matt in the Becoming Catholic class was telling us about the ancient prayer position. It wasn't like this. This was more recent. The ancient prayer position was like this, your hands raised. That's a natural response to this fear of the Lord, this encounter with God. And I think that's what's going on here. And this is a good fear. This is a holy fear. This is a fear that gives us a good perspective on who God is and who we are. It's going to lead us to greater reverence and ultimately to a reverential fear where the only thing we fear is offending God because we've come to love him so much. There's a great quote I love from St. Francis de Sales on this fear of the Lord. He says, "We must fear God out of love, not love him out of fear." That's good. There's one more story from Scripture that has been very helpful for me that I'd like to share, and that is the story of Peter's denial. Okay, the night of the Last Supper, Jesus tells his disciples, "You're all going to fall away from me." And Peter says, "No way, not me." And Jesus says, "Peter, this very night you're going to deny me 3 times. And sure enough, he was in his fear. He denied even knowing Jesus 3 times. And here's the guy who's going to be the chief apostle. So it was a colossal failure on his part. And yet, when you think about how Jesus responded, the next time Jesus saw him after the resurrection and he spoke directly to Peter, how did he speak to Peter? How did he respond to him in light of what Peter had done? Was there anything like, "I told you so," any condemnation? There was not a word of that. 3 times Peter denied him. 3 times Jesus asked him, "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord." Here's how St. Augustine put it. 3 times Peter had denied in fear. 3 times he confessed out of love. By his replies and his profession of love, Peter condemned and wiped out his former fear. That's who Jesus is. He didn't come to condemn. His passion is to save us, especially in our weakness. I mentioned earlier about my fear of public speaking. I don't know from up here if I've mentioned that when I was young in college, I was in the seminary. And I was studying to be a priest for Washington. And I loved it. I absolutely loved being in the seminary. All the things we were learning, the fellowship, the camaraderie with the guys, the prayers, the service, everything. I loved it. Except the public speaking part. That was difficult. So I was in for a little over 2 years. I was started up at Mount St. Mary's, and they were big. They were pushing people to get out and start speaking a lot. And I ran. I just out of fear, I got out, I chickened out. And, many times I've worried, I might have been saying no to God in kind of an important thing here, and I've worried about that. But actually, just as I've been preparing for this homily, I just kind of realized that I have this incredible wife, I have 4 wonderful kids, and God's got me up here. So even, it just shows his mercy, his compassion, his tenderness in our weakness. And if we just hang in there with him, he'll bring us to victory. Praise the Lord. So brothers and sisters, what's your fear? What's holding you down? What's keeping you from living the life, giving yourself in love completely as God is calling you to do? Let this Lent be a time of change. Don't just keep on going on. No more saying no. In fact, let it begin right here in this Mass. We're about to receive Jesus Christ himself. Believe him. Trust that he wants what is good for us. And just no more to living in fear. No more to just existing. Yes to God. Yes to life. We all know in our heads that God loves us, that God is good, and he wants what is good for us. We all know that up here. We got to know it down here. And the way that happens is through personal relationship with Jesus. We get to know him. We get to experience how much he loves us. And that happens through prayer, Happens through fellowship, happens through the graces we have here in the Mass and other sacraments, and through saying yes to him and what he's calling us to do. And we develop that relationship. And that drives out the fear. One powerful form of prayer that can help us walk with him is the Stations of the Cross. And we're really encouraging everyone during this Lent to come and join us, participate on the Stations of the Cross on Friday evenings. It's every Friday, 7:30 p.m., and it's about 30 minutes. And we've made some changes this year in the stations. We put the prayers up on the screens so you can follow along easily. And we'll begin each of the stations with a reflection from somebody in the parish on the theme for that week. So just on Friday, we heard a great, beautiful reflection from Rick and Maria Wharton on confronting their temptations. This coming Friday, I'll be speaking about fear again. There's more than just the public speaking that I will be sharing. And, we've had a great turnout this past couple of Fridays. So really, if you can make it, please come. On the back of the handout, which we have, of course, at the exits, is the schedule for the stations and also who's going to be sharing the reflection at each one. So whether you're able to join us or not, be willing to try something new this Lent. And if you're struggling, if you're like me and fear is your big thing, just give it try something new. Deepen that relationship with Jesus. I would like to close with a few words from Scripture that I have found helpful in dealing with fear. I came that you might have life and have it to the full. Fear is useless. What is needed is trust. And then our Lord says, let not your hearts be troubled. Have faith in God and faith in me. Amen.